Hello and welcome to Killer Short Stories. As you can tell, I've had quite a few comments about the voice that I'm using. It's something that I've been working on in Logic and, thought the deep voice effect would work out a little bit better than my regular voice. So just letting you all know this is my real voice. I hope you like it. And so today's story we're going to be talking about the movie Scream. And I actually didn't know this, but it's actually based off of a true story set in Gainesville, Florida. And without further ado, let's get right into this episode. I'm super excited. I hope you guys are too. Please leave a like and a comment. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Grab your popcorn and a nice refreshment. And I hope you enjoy this video. Before the summer of 1990, Gainesville, Florida was a stereotypical southern town with loads of small town charm, pretty homes, and oaks everywhere. Very much a university town, Gainesville is heavily dependent on the University of Florida. School pride can be seen everywhere, a party place. Gainesville has its share of drunk and disorderly calls, thefts, and even rapes, but murder is rare. As late as August of 1990, it wasn't uncommon for people in town to leave their doors unlocked. August 1990 was the start of another school year, this one a new decade. 18-year-old Sonia Larson and 17-year-old Christina Powell were like so many thousands of other students that August. Both had graduated from high school the spring before and were entering the university as incoming freshmen. They had met during the summer semester while staying on campus in a dorm. With a third roommate, they had rented a townhome-style apartment at the Williamsburg Village Apartments. Williamsburg Village was off campus, but only like 4 blocks from the school. They both arrived in Gainesville on Friday, August 24th. They spent most of the day unloading their cars and then taking a trip to the local Walmart to buy items for their new apartment. They had dinner together at Chili's and then stopped at a convenience store so that Sonia could use to pay the phone to call her mother, as their home phone had not yet been hooked up. The girls' plan was to get up on Saturday morning to continue with their unpacking and organizing and then find jobs. Their third roommate and Christy's parents were due to arrive on Sunday. Sonia had promised her boyfriend she would call him. That call never came. Christy's parents tried calling throughout the weekend before arriving on Sunday as planned. When their knocks went unanswered, they called the police. So, before they called the police, they had seen the maintenance guy, and they had asked the maintenance guy if he could open the door for them. And he said that he was not allowed to. He would have to ask the landlord. And so they went to the landlord, and the landlord said, "I don't have any problem with it. I just have to get the cops involved." So once they, were waiting, the cops finally showed up. And once they arrived, they went upstairs. Then there were 2 cops. 2 cops went upstairs and started knocking on the door. No answer. So they had to use force by opening the door, and they searched the room, but they still couldn't find Sonia and the rest of the girls. Until one of the cops finally noticed Sonia behind the couch, completely naked, and she was in a very lewd position. He was very traumatized, like he couldn't handle the situation whatsoever, so he ran down the stairs and he threw up on the grass. Sonia's parents had seen this and they were horrified and knew something was wrong, so they went upstairs. The other cop tried to hold him off, but they managed to get through, and they saw what happened to their daughter. They were completely traumatized. From what they had seen, she was very naked, and it looked like she was binded by duct tape because there was some residue of duct tape left around her wrists as well as her mouth. The same thing happened to her friend Christy, and this happened upstairs on the 2nd floor. So all of this was just very sad. It wasn't a really great time. As we go on with the story, there is another 18-year-old girl named Krista. She had graduated from high school. and was an honors student in chemistry at Santa Fe Community College. She planned to transfer to the University of Florida with the goal of joining the FBI to work in forensics. She was a police explorer and had the cute nickname of Glowworm. Until mid-August, she had shared a duplex apartment with a roommate. The roommate moved out a week prior to Krista's murder. She worked in the records department of the sheriff's office and was scheduled to arrive around midnight that Saturday evening, August 25th. Because she was so reliable, Krista had her wisdom teeth removed on Thursday, August 23rd, and still showed up for her midnight shift Thursday night. Her tardiness was quickly noticed. So as you can tell, she was a very reliable person. She would come into work even after getting her wisdom teeth removed. And, the cops were very worried that she wasn't showing up for work. So they waited about an hour and, they had decided to do a welfare check on her. The apartment was less than 3 miles from the apartment of Sonia and Christy. Finding the front door of the apartment locked, the responding officer had the property manager show him how to access the apartment from a sliding door in Krista's bedroom. He noted that a chain link fence, which separated the building from the adjacent woods, had a section that was sagging, as if it had been pushed down. He was unable to see directly through the slider, but as the closed blinds did not reach all the way down, he got on his stomach and aimed his flashlight inside. What he saw was nothing short of a scene from a horror movie, a real-life nightmare that left no doubt that Gainesville had an evil presence in its midst. Krista's body was on her bed, bent at the waist. She had stab wounds in her back, and she had been sliced from breastbone to pelvis. Her head had been removed from her body. With the news that 3 murdered females had been discovered in 24 hours, panic began to set in. Parents called their children repeatedly, some insisting they return home for the semester. Stores in Gainesville ran out of deadbolts, baseball bats, mace, stun guns, and handguns. Students that chose to remain at the school buddied up, gathering in groups to sleep in shifts. Female students asked male friends to stay with them, believing the presence of a man or men would dissuade the killer. Moving on to the next victims of the story, Tracy was one of those females who, while very frightened by the news of the murderers, felt safe with her friend Manny. Tracy, a former homecoming queen as well as a soccer and softball player in her hometown of Miami, was a National Honor Society member, and as a senior at the University of Florida, planned to continue her education in law school. Manny, 23 years old, had gone to high school and graduated with Tracy. He had been president of his high school's thespian club and was a former football player. A burly 200-pound 6-footer who claimed the woman in his life was his cat, Sasha. Manny dreamt of becoming an architect and had attended Metro-Dade Community College and Santa Fe Community College. While there had been many romantic feelings between the two, these friends were devoted with a deep respect and affection for each other. They shared a residence at the Gatorwood Apartments, an older, somewhat run-down complex located on Archer Road about a mile from campus. On Monday evening, August 27th, Manny had just started a bartending job at the neighboring Bennigan's and arrived home late. Tracy was on the phone chatting with a friend about the murders and noted his late arrival, as well as her relief that he was home so she could finally take a shower. He headed to bed just after 2 a.m., unaware that a killer was watching him and Tracy. The next day, a friend dropped by to see Manny and Tracy and discovered their bodies. Manny was dead in his bed. Tracy lay in the hallway, posed as Sonia, Christy, and Krista had been. Both had been killed with vicious stab wounds. Tracy's hair was still damp, evidencing that she had been attacked and killed after she had taken a shower. Fear permeated every corner of Gainesville, and students fled the city, and some never returned. More than 36,000 students had flooded Gainesville during August. In just 72 hours, a serial killer had gone on a deadly rampage through the peaceful university town, leaving 5 students slashed, stabbed, and mutilated. The pressure on local law enforcement was immense, and everyone from students to their parents to the university demanded answers as quickly as possible. Humphrey, a 19-year-old, was a student at the University of Florida, 6'2" and over 200 pounds. He walked with a limp from a car accident and had many scars on his face. Described as a loner with very few friends, those that knew him said he bragged about being in the Recon 82nd Airborne, which was not true, and that he stated he hated women. He was known to carry a large honey knife on his leg, and until the week prior had lived at the Gatorwood apartments where Tracy and Manny had been murdered. His roommates had kicked him out due to his acting crazy. Believed that Humphrey fit the profile but cautioned detectives about releasing any information to the public, believing that such information might push Humphrey or the killer, if Humphrey was not him, to commit suicide. On Thursday morning, Humphrey was arrested for beating up his 79-year-old grandmother, who told cops that Humphrey told her she was going to die and struck her, leaving her bloody. The same morning, Humphrey was arrested for beating his grandmother. The Orlando Sentinel ran a story that not only identified Humphrey as a major suspect, but reported that one of the victims had been decapitated. Already discouraged by a clear leak in the department, the initial questioning of Humphrey left more questions than answers for many. During the interrogation, Humphrey insinuated that he had a split personality named John, that John had committed the killings, and he put himself at the Williamsburg Village Apartments at the time that Sonia Larson and Christina Powell were being killed. He also rambled on and got many facts of the case wrong. 40 miles south of Gainesville, at around noon on Friday, September 7th, the manager of the Winn-Dixie grocery store in Ocala was held up with a .38 revolver to his head. After collecting money from the registers at the front of the store, the robber walked out the main entrance and ran to the nearby Palm Chevrolet. The first responding officers immediately noticed a man fitting the description of the robber in the parking lot of Palm Chevrolet, sitting in a silver Mustang that would turn out to be stolen. When officers asked the man to put his hands up, he complied, but then accelerated into traffic. He topped speeds of 60 to 80 miles per hour and bouncing off curbs before striking another car. He took off on foot but was quickly apprehended behind a flower shop. Unlike most people who are handcuffed and placed under arrest, this one liked to talk. He emphasized that he knew his rights but wanted to talk. He told the officers his gun was still in the Mustang and he had stolen the car from Tampa, and he apologized for the trouble he had caused them. He also said that he had shot his father, and his name was Danny Harold Rolling. On September 17th, Rolling appeared at the Marion County Courthouse, Sands Attorney, to declare his guilt in being charged in armed robbery, possession of firearm by a felon, and fleeing and eluding police officers. On November, a detective contacted the task force in Gainesville. He had gotten a tip on November 5th from Crime Stoppers. Cindy Dobbins, a resident, had been on vacation in Panama City, Florida, in late August when the news on the Gainesville murders broke. Unable to forget them, they reminded her of the Grimson murders back home. Like the female victims, Julie Grimson had been pretty in very natural way. The victims also reminded her of her friend Omather Halko, who had been married to Danny Rolling for a time. According to Cindy, Danny spoke often of going to Florida, where he would see all the beautiful girls at the beach. Cindy also knew that Rolling bought his clothes at the Dillards at South Park Mall, where Julie Grissom had worked. Cindy's husband, Steve, who never felt comfortable around Danny in the first place, said that Danny, who often had a large knife strapped to his leg, had told him that he liked stabbing people. As Rolling was locked up in the Marion County Jail and not going anywhere, the lead was given relatively low priority status. On November 14th, he saw a doctor where it was noted that he had open sores from scratching, and he was only sleeping 2 hours a night due to being kept awake by the cries and moans of demons. It was also noted that he had attempted suicide twice, the first by strangling himself, the second by ingesting 19 pills that he had acquired from another inmate. A razor blade had also been found on him during a cell search. On January 11th, while reading through the lead on Rolling, it was discovered and confirmed through Rolling's military records that his blood type was B and he was a secretor. An investigator went to Ocala and got Rolling's consent to provide a blood sample. 5 days later, there was no question that Rolling was their man when a second DNA probed 99.9% of the population. A month after his 17th birthday, he had joined the Air Force after his father had signed him up, and he was sent to Homestead, Florida. His first year of enlistment went pretty well, and he earned his high school diploma and seemed to be finding his way. But then he began rebelling at the structure, demands, and requirements of the military by drinking a lot and smoking pot. That led to harder drugs like LSD and hashish. Military authorities busted him on a possessions charge, and he lost his stripe and went to the first of many psychiatrists where he was diagnosed with a personality disorder. Rolling was recommended for a general discharge as his superiors did not believe he would adjust to military life in his underlying immature personality. On May 18, 1990, Rolling and his father, who had always had a horrible relationship, got into yet another argument, and his father, who kept guns all over the house, had pulled a weapon on his son before this particular evening. He actually fired 3 times at Danny. Danny, fearful and enraged, got 2 of his own handguns and opened fire on his father, putting a bullet in his father's head and in his stomach before going on the run. On November 15th, following 9 days of testimony from more than 40 witnesses, the 17-person grand jury returned indictments against Rolling for 5 counts of homicide, 3 counts of sexual battery, and 3 counts of armed burglary. The state announced it would seek the death penalty in the case that was eventually set for February 15th, 1994. Strapped to a gurney, convicted serial killer Danny Harold Rolling died by lethal injection at Florida State Prison Wednesday. Rolling was pronounced dead at 6:13 p.m., and his final statement, he sang in the witness room crowded with 47 people. He sang for 2 minutes. One verse was, "He who flung the stars into the heavens, above created the oceans, mountains, eagles, and doves. None greater than thee, O Lord, none greater than thee." Hey guys, I hope that you enjoyed this audio as much as I did. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It really means a lot to me. And let me know in the comment section, what's your favorite scary movie? I would really love to know. I hope that you guys have a great night, and I hope you join us again for another episode. Be safe.